Today I wanted to go over a question that I get a lot, both from current clients and from potential clients. That question is, I had serious injuries in this incident. Why is my attorney trying to tell me that I need to accept an amount that is less than what will compensate me for my injuries? For example, $15,000. I've got $1 million worth of medical bills. Why would I even consider accepting something like $15,000? Well, I can't speak to why your attorney is giving you that advice, but I can speak to at least one scenario where that advice might be given and it might be properly given. This usually comes up when the defendant has a minimal insurance policy or their insurance policy is not enough to fully compensate you for your injuries. So let's use an example of having $50,000 worth of medical bills, and your attorney is trying to tell you that you probably should seriously consider the $15,000 offer that's being made by the defendant. This might be made because the defendant has minimal policy in California, which is $15,000. And you think, well, if it's $15,000 as the total settlement, my medical bills alone are $50,000. Why would I even consider that? Well, I would assume if your attorney's telling you to do that, that they've taken all of the necessary steps, like my office would take, in terms of finding out whether or not the defendant has any other insurance policies, finding out whether or not they have any assets that could be used to satisfy a judgment, and finding out if there are any other culpable parties. If all of this is done, and there's no other insurance, there's no other culpable parties, the defendant has no other assets that might help go pay for a judgment, then essentially why we might tell you that you should consider taking the $15,000 policy is this. Your other alternative is to sue the other driver, take it all the way through trial, get a judgment against them, just to use a round number, say for $100,000. Now, at that point, assuming the jury awards you $100,000, the insurance for the defendant will say, okay, well, congratulations. Here's the $15,000 we offered you a long time ago. That's the policy limit. And you can try and get the other $85,000 from the defendant driver. Now, if the defendant driver has no means of paying for that $85,000 judgment, they may be able to go to bankruptcy court, and they also might be able to discharge that judgment you have against them. So if they are able to do that, then essentially the judgment against them is worth the paper that it's printed on, and you're not going to do any better. In fact, you'll do worse than if you had accepted the $15,000 maybe months or years prior. And the reason being is to get that judgment in court, you will have had a lot more costs. You may have had to pay experts. And it could be that by the time you get that $100,000 judgment against the other driver, your attorneys have already spent more than $15,000 on costs. So you end up in a much worse place. You might end up with nothing, assuming you can get a $100,000 judgment from a jury. So in situations like that, your attorney probably will tell you the different circumstances and the different choices you can make, and it's very possible that the best choice at that point in time will be to seriously consider the $15,000 offer that's being made. No, it won't fully compensate you, but it might be the best thing that's available for you. This is another reason why we strongly recommend that you look into having underinsured motorist coverage. In this same scenario, assume that you had $1 million of underinsured motorist coverage, or even $100,000 of underinsured motorist coverage. Let's go with the 100. The defendant driver will offer the $15,000. You'll accept that. You'll make a claim for underinsured motorist coverage, and then you'll submit everything to your insurance, and you'll have the potential to recover up to whatever your underinsured motorist coverage limits are in that second claim with your own insurance company. So you won't end up in the situation where accepting policy limits may leave you grossly undercompensated for your injuries. So if you have a scenario like that, if you're wondering why your attorney is recommending that, that might be the reason why. Give us a call. Maybe we can explain it to you, or maybe we can try to figure out why that recommendation is being made.